So George and I are here today just to have a bit of a chat about facilitating courses and being trainers with the REC and what that experience is like. So we'll just do a quick introduction. My name's Marie. I'm a mental health nurse and a trainer with the Recovery Education Centre. So I'm here from the NHS point of view, and when I'm delivering training, I'm sort of primarily there to give the learned experience point of view.
Hello, I'm George. I'm a peer specialist and I work for the Dorset Mental Health Forum, and I provide peer support to people through the various services that we work into, and I provide a lived experience perspective on the topics that we cover in the Recovery Education Centre. I've been working for the REC for nearly 3 years now, I think, and had experience presenting on the various platforms that we offer, so face-to-face courses, webinars and podcasts.
So George and I've worked together quite a lot, haven't we, George?
Yeah, it's been good.
Over those past few years. And so it's really nice actually to have this chance to talk about that and think about how that's worked and what we like about it, what we don't like about it. And yeah, I think from my point of view, I think working with people with lived experience from the forum has been one of the most sort of powerful experiences of my life, really, career-wise and professionally-wise. I think it really changed my perspective when I came and worked at the REC, working alongside people with lived experience, and sort of within this role, having people share that experience has been really incredible and really powerful. And I've seen sort of these amazing light bulb moments with students on our courses, largely I have to say from when peers are sharing their experiences. Is that something that you've seen as well, George?
Yeah, I definitely have, and I think for me the power of recovery education and the courses that we offer has been about being able to share my experience, but also hear students engage with the content, the material that we present, by tapping into their own lived experience and hearing about perhaps what other people understand by recovery or how they practice self-compassion. And it's been about the power is in the sharing of the lived experience in amongst students, as well as I feel like adding my own.
Yeah, I think that's really true, actually. And I think one of the things that I find as the person who's bringing the learned experience is I struggle to stay inside that box, really, when we deliver
Sure, yeah.
together. And one of the things that I've learned over time is that actually that's okay. So I think sometimes I also end up sharing my own lived experience, because otherwise there's something that's sort of quite false feeling about kind of holding back on things when everyone else in the room is sharing. And although I do that from a certain perspective, I suppose it's still, there is a blurred boundary there. And one of the things I feel very aware of, particularly when I work with you, George, is that you also have a lot of knowledge and a lot of learned experience too. And I guess, you often share that as well as your lived experience.
Yeah, I try to. I think I feel like my role, because typically our courses are structured by the way that I see it anyway, is that we do introduce various clinical models, and it's always great to have you or someone in a similar position to be able to share that professional clinical understanding of those models that we work with, um, and as well as interpreting that model from my own experience. I always also think that I feel like my role is to take a critical approach to it as well, to ask the question of whether these things make sense, whether they do capture what people's experience of, say, depression or anxiety is like, or whatever it may be that people have experienced, in order that they can see the value of their own point of view and their own understanding of themselves. And then we can look at how perhaps that might have an impact practically on what people do, because I see the courses that we offer are ultimately, at the end of it, translate into various skills and practical things that people can use to help them in their recovery. So I see what we do. I see is we try and offer people something new, so something that they can learn, and perhaps that'll be people can find that useful. At the same time, we don't just expect people to passively accept the things that we offer. They're there as discussion points in a way, and so people can disregard that if it's not useful to them, or perhaps one of the powerful things on the Rec is that we do see people making connections and discovering new ideas for the first time. And also, I think the third thing that we do is that we allow people the opportunity to add what's uniquely theirs to the topic that we're talking about. And I think what's really great about the Rec is we do have that lived experience and learned experience. Facilitators, two separate roles, but definitely the knowledge and the experience overlaps, and it's very powerful when a clinician also talks about their own experience. I think it's more relatable for people.
Yeah, I think it does sort of sometimes shift something in the room. I've definitely noticed that before. Yeah, there's something about that being our authentic selves. There's something about being very open and being there as human beings, really. Yeah, I agree. I think that can work really well. And I really, oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I think reflecting back on my own experience when I reached out for help and I had, say, therapeutic support, I think the experience is very much that in that relationship, although very helpful, the structure of it is somebody with clinical experience is looking at you is going to help you because there's something problematic. You need help. In effect, you've got a problem, and the other person is okay, and they're going to give you some information that is going to help you with your problem. And then coming in, although oh, excuse me, although my experience with the Rec is initially actually coming into it as somebody who's presenting courses, what I found was really refreshing and different is the way that there isn't that power imbalance between somebody who's got the answers or the learned experience telling you what you're going to need to do because you've got a problem. It's a shared space where everyone, irrespective of their role, is able to meet on an equal footing to talk about the topic that we're discussing in a way that everybody's experience is valid and no one person is a problem, but learning from each other whilst learning from the clinical perspective, the lived experience perspective. And it's a different relationship, and that's what's very powerful for people, I think.
Yeah, I agree, but can also feel quite uncomfortable. I don't know if you felt that, George. I mean, I've felt that before in my early days in the Rec as a clinician, having to sort of let go of that rescuer role. So I think, a lot of us come into these kinds of jobs because we come from that perspective that we want to fix things, particularly in nursing, and my background's nursing, wanting to fix stuff, wanting to find out what the problem is, sort it out, make everything go away and make it all right and rescue, and I think coming into the Rec was a real shift in culture there for me, that it wasn't about moving people straight into action. It wasn't about suggesting what people do, and that was uncomfortable, and that was something I had to learn. And I also think having been a student as well, from the student perspective, it not being rescued, actually coming in and what you were saying earlier about, okay, we might present some models or some clinical thinking behind things, but it's not there as the answer. It's there to be had a look at, take what you think is useful, don't take what you think isn't useful. And there is a power imbalance, and it's there is like a balancing back of power.
Yeah, definitely.
Which doesn't always feel comfortable.
Yeah, I can imagine that, because I don't have that clinical background or have worked in that kind of role where I feel more that my role is to fix or solve problems. I think actually I came into it and I felt like delivering Rec courses really seemed to fit for me without the imbalances of power and the recognition of everybody's point of view. I guess because, you know, prior to working to the Forum, my background was more in education and university and studying philosophy. And I feel there's a real parallel between how I understand that and how I understand the recovery education, because the way that I understand education generally is that you learn things and you should be welcome to offer your point of view if you can articulate it and provide your perspective. You may disagree with the course material, and it's right to engage with it in that way if you provide your own point of view. And I think whilst they're slightly different in the context of recovery education, there's a really natural transition for me to think, actually, we do start as an invitation to discuss models, to discuss ideas, to discuss other things that people have said, with a view to asking what people think. The whole point is to stimulate reflection on your own experience, in order that you may have a point of view that agrees or you may disagree, but it's about the act of interpreting and understanding yourself that goes on, in order then that you may find things useful, you may not, and you could. But I think it's one of the great things about recovery education is inviting people to value their own experience as something to reflect on, to understand, and gain greater insight into, in order ultimately to be able to practice some of the things that you may have found useful to pick up, that help you with your well-being, help you with your sense of recovery.
And I think, you know, often we say at the end of courses, and I worry this ends up being a bit trite because we say it a lot, but
Yeah.
we often say, you know, as facilitators and trainers as well, that we've learned a lot on
Yeah,
that session.
yeah.
And I know we say it a lot, but we say it a lot because actually it's true. Because you know, it's very, very rare that we'll deliver a course and come away from it without a new perspective, because there's always a new perspective in the room. And we always come away with something that we've gained from that. And sometimes we'll reshare that on other courses. You know, there's things that the students have said that have really resonated with us, and we take those away. And one of the things, you know, I love about delivering with the reg is, some people might know, I've had annualized hours in the past, which means I have the school holidays off. So often I have 6 weeks off in the summer, and during that period, I really, really miss the reg, because delivering the courses, we're all in the room together, and it is a real shared humanity thing, and we do always learn things. And for me, it sort of works as a kind of support thing. You know, it keeps me going, it keeps me thinking, it keeps me learning. And, you know, as we know, one of the 5 steps to wellbeing. And I find that really, really helpful. Do you, George? Do you find it helpful to be in those groups?
Yeah, I think I do. I think that I did when I attended courses as a student. I think the thing that struck me was this wasn't a group therapy session. It's very different from other people listening may think that when they're first introduced to the rec, it's a group sharing experience for a therapeutic purpose, and it wasn't like that. It's much more educational, a chance to be exposed to ideas and learn and tap into your own experience, sharing only as much as you want to and feel comfortable with. But what you get from that is a real awareness that you're not on your own, and that other people have experienced what you may have experienced, and that's very validating, without making it about you or them or anybody. It's just implicit that you've all had some form of experience related to this topic, and that is not just about the 5 steps well-being, not just about learning, but then about a kind of connection as well that you may not have had, because we know it can be very isolating when you start facing mental health challenges. And one of the great powerful things about the rec is it empowers people as a student to engage with the topics that are relevant to them, and do it with other people, so you're not on your own.
Yeah. And sort of coming away with something, you know. And I think sometimes there's things that, you know, I knew a long time ago and I've forgotten, and it will get brought up again, you know, and that it serves as kind of reminders as well, which is why we say to people that it's okay to, you know, retake courses that you've done, because sometimes it just works well as a reminder. And I'm thinking of lots of things that have come up for me on rec courses that have been really, really helpful in my own life. Is that I was going to put you on the spot then, George, and just ask you if there's anything that you can think of, but I'll say one while I give you a chance to think. And
I've got one, but
oh no,
yeah,
go on
ahead.
then. Yeah.
Well, so I'm trying to think about things that students have said, and it's not coming to my mind at the moment. But one thing that I've taken away definitely is when we've presented courses together. I think maybe it's on either self-compassion or self-management. You're very good at talking through the grounding techniques and the breathing techniques, and I've learned from that. So if I go for a walk, for example, something I probably wouldn't have otherwise done if I hadn't attended a rec course would be practicing some of the exercises that get me to pay attention to my surroundings more than be in my own head, whether that's going through the colors of the rainbow and trying to find something that matches in order to shift my attention, or just paying attention to what I can see, what I can hear, what I can feel. That was a really practical thing that I probably wouldn't have done that if I hadn't done rec courses or delivered them. And yeah, definitely something that I think about and do because of it.
Yeah, I have an example too about actually for me it's about having a nighttime routine. So one of the peers that I work with, I know has a very clear bedtime routine about getting off to sleep, and for me that's been amazing. It's about like giving myself time actually to get ready for bed in the evening, not trying to rush around, do a million things beforehand. It's about allowing myself all the time that I need, and that's really helped with my sleep. So that's like a really small example, but it feels like almost every rec course we do, I take something like that away, something that will be helpful, or just a different way of thinking, or a different way of framing something.
Because I think, as well as practical things, I think that why it's so rewarding to deliver rec courses, and I think perhaps students may get a similar experience as well, is you get the chance to meet and talk with people on topics that are quite challenging or difficult sometimes. But it's the willingness of people to be open and not people's honesty, and also it's the strengths that people have, that students bring and show through the way that they have managed their recovery, have managed their well-being through difficult times. It's just it's this feeling of strength, of skills, of shared resources, shared skills, shared knowledge that is prompted by the framing of our courses that we provide, but is all comes from the students and their own lived experience. And then it's that and seeing the shared learning happen, people sharing the fact that, I don't know, that they're a writer, and they all, in the sense that they like to write down their thoughts and feelings, and it helps them, and that light bulb goes off in someone. Yeah, I've done that, or I did that, and I could do that again, I could do more of it. Yeah, I've just put my journal away in a drawer, and I never thought about it in the connection with this topic, but I'm going to use it to help me manage. And these are the powerful things when people get to be open, honest, share, and real gems come through about how people have coped and the skills that they've got around coping with their experiences, and that people resonate and learn from each other.
Yeah, for sure. It's just making me think, actually, George, in a sort of winding pathway, but it was sort of made me think about a time when we were delivering a course together, and we were both talking about our own lived experience of mental health difficulties. And I think we were talking about depression at the time, and we ended up having a conversation together about the completely different ways that we approached dealing with our depression, and why that was so different. And I remember that feeling like a really, really powerful conversation. And I think it's one of the wonderful things about having two people facilitating a course coming from different perspectives, and then you get all of that student stuff, everyone else is in the room sharing how they did it too, and how powerful that is. But I remember that conversation really well, and thinking that's a really good example for me about why we facilitate these things and deliver them together.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think, you do learn. It's not just about finding people you agree with, but you learn from the differences as well. I think that was a good example of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's been really nice to talk about this today, George.
Yeah,
I've really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Excellent.